25 days. That is how long Franco Baresi had between knee surgery and a World Cup final. Pasadena, 1994. Italy's captain tears his meniscus in the group stage. Tournament over. For anyone else. Baresi has the operation. Rehabilitates in less than 4 weeks. Plays all 120 minutes. He is, by most accounts, the best player on the pitch. Then the shootout comes, and the man who gave everything sends his penalty over the bar. Italy lose. Franco Baresi died this morning, at 66. This is who he was. Start with the part that could have changed everything. As a boy, Franco Baresi had trials at Inter. They turned him down and signed his older brother, Giuseppe, instead. So Franco crossed the city and joined the youth team of their fiercest rivals. Think about that sliding door for a second. The greatest one-club man in Milan's history exists because the other club in Milan said no. Both brothers became captains. And through the late 80s, the image of the two Baresis exchanging pennants before kickoff became the symbol of the Milan derby itself. One family, both armbands, either side of the divide. Franco made his Milan debut at 17, in April 1978, won his first Scudetto as a teenager the following season. And at 22, he was handed the captain's armband, which he would wear for 15 seasons. And here's the measure of the man. In the early 80s, Milan went down to Serie B twice in 3 seasons. Once through a match-fixing scandal he had nothing to do with. A player of his level, in the second division, in the prime years of his development, every club in Europe would have taken him. He stayed, both times. He captained them back up. He never played for anyone else. Baresi was not the biggest defender, not the fastest. What he had was a football brain that operated a step ahead of everyone else on the pitch. He redefined the libero, the sweeper, as something modern. Not a destroyer sitting deep, but a defender who read the game so early he rarely needed to tackle at all. Who stepped out with the ball. Who conducted Milan's legendary high line and offside trap like an orchestra. When Arrigo Sacchi built the Milan side that changed European football in the late 80s, the pressing, the compact lines, the 4 defenders moving as one, Baresi was the brain the whole machine was wired through. Alongside Paolo Maldini, Alessandro Costacurta, and Mauro Tassotti, he anchored what many still call the greatest defense ever assembled. A backline that stayed together for the best part of a decade and didn't just win, but changed how football thought about defending. Here's a detail that tells you how good he was. In 1989, a centre-back finished second in the Ballon d'Or. The only man ahead of Franco Baresi that year was his own teammate, Marco van Basten. Defenders don't get near that award. Baresi did, playing 40 yards from goal. 719 appearances, 20 seasons, 1 club. The honours: 6 Serie A titles, the first as a teenager, 5 more as the leader of a dynasty, 3 European Cups, including back-to-back triumphs in 1989 and 1990, with a side many still rank as the greatest club team ever, 4 Italian Super Cups, 2 Intercontinental Cups. For Italy, 81 caps. At 22, he was part of the squad that won the 1982 World Cup, without playing a single minute. A kid watching Scurea and Gentile, learning the standard. And that summer, he was a world champion who'd just been relegated to Serie B with his club, which tells you everything about the loyalty. 12 years later, he was the captain who dragged himself off an operating table to play a World Cup final. The president of the Italian Federation put it simply today: an extraordinary champion who wore only 2 jerseys, Milan's and Italy's. When he retired in 1997, Milan retired the number 6 with him, the first player in the club's history given that honor. There is no number 6 at AC Milan. There is only Baresi. Go back to 1994, because it deserves more than a cold open, and because it was the cruelest summer any great player has had. It starts in May. Milan reached the Champions League final against Barcelona, and Baresi is suspended. He watches from the stands as his team produces one of the great final performances, 4-0, without him. The captain, missing the masterpiece. Then June, the World Cup group stage, the meniscus tears, surgery, and the 25 days, a World Cup final on the other side of the world, in brutal heat, against the best attacking team in the tournament, Romario and Bebeto's Brazil. Baresi, 1 month off knee surgery, at 34 years old, gave a performance people still describe as the finest defensive display in a final. 0-0 after extra time. The first World Cup final ever decided on penalties. Baresi steps up first and puts it over. He collapsed in tears, and his teammates held him up. And here is the thing football understood. Even in that moment, the miss wasn't his failure. The miss was the receipt for what he'd spent to be there. Nobody serious has ever held it against him. It became the most human moment in the career of a man who, on the pitch, barely made mistakes at all. One summer, banned from the final his club won, broken before the final his country lost, and remembered more fondly for both than most players are for their triumphs. He never really left. After retiring, he worked with Milan's young players, and from 2020, he served as the club's honorary vice president, the living link between the shirt and its history. In August last year, Baresi had surgery to remove a pulmonary nodule and began immunotherapy. He fought it the way he defended, quietly, without drama, and in February, at the opening ceremony of the Milano Cortina Winter Olympics, he made his final public appearance, carrying the Olympic torch into the San Siro, the stadium where he'd spent his whole life, side by side with Giuseppe Bergomi, Inter's great captain and Milan's great captain, rivals for 2 decades, walking together. The crowd stood for him. 5 months later, Milan announced his death. No cause was given, and out of respect, we won't speculate. The club's statement: the entire history of AC Milan is in tears. His example and integrity will be forever etched into the club's DNA, just as his iconic number 6 shirt is. And later, in memory of Franco, we stand united, knowing he'll guide and push us throughout our Rossoneri journey. Forever. Because Baresi is forever. Gianluigi Buffon remembered his own Serie A debut, November 1995, 17 years old, a boy in Parma's goal staring across the pitch at the captain of Milan. Finding myself on the field against champions like him was something incredible. Even Italy's Prime Minister marked it. With Baresi's passing, Italy loses not just one of its greatest champions, but an example of loyalty, professionalism, and dedication. How do you sum up Franco Baresi? You could do it with numbers: 719 games, 6 titles, 3 European Cups, 1 club. You could do it with the shirt, the first number Milan ever retired. You could do it with the Ballon d'Or, he nearly won from 40 yards behind the strikers. You could do it with Pasadena, 25 days from surgery to the greatest defensive performance a final has seen. But maybe the simplest way is this. Inter rejected him, so he made their rivals immortal. His club went down twice, so he went down with them and carried them back. His body broke a month before the biggest game of his life, so he rebuilt it in 25 days. And when his penalty flew over the bar, the world loved him more for it, because by then, everyone knew exactly what he was made of. Football produces great players every generation. It almost never produces this. A man whose entire career, from 17 to 37, fits inside one badge, and whose worst moment became the proof of his greatness. 1 club, 1 number, 1 of 1. Share your favorite Baresi memory in the comments. The best ones get pinned. Subscribe to Pitchside FC. Turn on notifications. Pitchside FC.